snacks.
This is our Being Comfortable Being a Geek panel. We are Loading Snacks. We're just a bunch of guys who like to get together and talk about things that go on in geek and geek culture. So my name is Gage. New Joker is with me here in the corner. Sin's down there at the bottom looking puzzled.
There you go.
And,
now I can hear him. Now I can hear him. Okay.
And
I was waiting to finally hear your voice. All right, I got you.
We have the wonderful Hilton George, co-founder of Otakon, with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I feel a little inadequate. Everybody's got these dope backgrounds. I'm at my parents' house, so I got this. I look like a ground display at IKEA. This is not very good back here. We'll work it out.
It's all good. It's all good. Listen, we've kind of established who we are. Again, we've talked a little bit about what we do. We just kind of like to play in this realm. We've introduced Hilton. So why are we doing this panel? I think that over the years, going to conventions, we have found that there are a lot of people who, like us, at one point in time or another, were not comfortable with who they were. Specifically with being a geek, but that kind of falls into all kinds of realms. And so we decided that a panel like this might be a good idea to just kind of have a bit of an outreach, let people know that there are other people out there like them and so forth. And we actually debuted this panel for the first time at the first BlerdCon. So this is kind of a round trip for us, having Hilton here with us to talk about this. So I want to start by doing this. Jokes. What is a geek? How would you define a geek?
I would say a geek would be someone that has an extensive knowledge on a certain topic. So, like, let's say, for instance, for me, I'm a Power Ranger geek. If you ask me about Dragon Ball Z, I'm a Dragon Ball Z geek. For some out there that probably are more of, though, in the sports realm, you may hear, like, sports buff. That could possibly go ahead and rattle off like all of Michael Jordan's stats from like his rookie year, like in college, all the way through the NBA. But overall, I would just say it's a person that just has a vast knowledge on a specific topic.
So then, Sin, how would you say that a geek differs from a nerd, or is there a difference?
I tend to think there's a difference only because of the time that we grew up in, Gage, and probably Hilton, not you jokes. But the whole, like, the nerds were like, the nerdy, book smart, pocket protector, glasses, getting picked on by jocks. Like, the nerds are more known, I guess, for being more brainiac and socially awkward kind of thing. And geeks, I agree with jokes, are passionate about specific subjects and subject matter, stuff like that.
I dig that. Hilton, would you say that there is a specific geek culture?
I think so. I think that what happens if you grow up, being fed a certain kind of message that can come from any fandom, if you're a geek around anime or comic books or cosplay or board gaming, video gaming, you kind of shape your communication style, you shape your personality, you shape, kind of your position in the world and in your social circles based on that, because even today you have more people who are communicating and befriending people and socializing online through the video game medium and even through the RPG medium than you might even have happening face to face, depending on, your age and where you live, et cetera, et cetera. So the culture kind of builds around that. And I think as geeks and nerds, to whatever degree we have that balance within us, all of us here, we have this sixth sense. When you walk up to somebody, you can almost feel like, when a Jedi walks into a bar and there's another Jedi, and you kind of feel that ripple in the force, you kind of go, you start trying to feel people out, especially for those of us that work in fields that are populated by muggles. You kind of like, wait a minute, that reference right there. Did he just quote Cowboy Bebop? Hold on, let me holler at you for a second, brother.
Now you know.
So,
now you know.
Right,
so like, on that note, right? Like, I guess, part of this is about being comfortable, and for me, what it means to be comfortable is to find a level where I'm okay with who I am and what I love, and I'm okay if other people who don't like it or aren't familiar with it um, look at it with a little bit of shade because it's just that they're not a part of it. Um, Jokes, are you comfortable being a geek?
100%. Like, I would say growing up, I've always liked what I like. And, I wanted to share what I like with others. But, in like, say, those younger years, elementary school, middle school, folks, some people didn't necessarily understand it, didn't want to necessarily take to it. So for me growing up, like, say, younger age, I grew up in the era of Pokemon. So I was the one that
Right.
had OG Game Boy playing Pokemon. I had my free groups of friends who would play together. Link cable days, we had to hook up our game systems to each other to do anything with them. But you always had that group that kind of was like, oh, what is this they're really doing? Or is this really a thing? But of course, fast forward, I'm 100% comfortable with where I'm at. I love what I love. And of course, I like to understand the things that others like as well, too. I'll never put
Yeah.
someone down because you know what? They like something that necessarily maybe is not something that I take to, but it's always that
Right.
piece of understanding the reason why they like said topic.
Yeah, that's that again, some of that age gap difference for us. I didn't grow up with Pokemon, right? There's like a 10-year difference in age between
Mm-hmm.
Jokes and
The
myself.
rest
And
of y'all.
so like Pokemon is your thing. Like I recognize its significance, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not a thing that I grew up with. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like those aren't that's not the stuff that was on when I was a kid. And my first experiences, for instance, with anime, were like going to a shop and finding VHS tapes to buy or rent or something like that.
Woo.
I know you feel me, Sin, because you were there
Yes.
when we were
Yes.
doing that. Um, back in the day. And I know that I know you well enough to know that you have a certain level of comfortability. How did you achieve being comfortable, Sin?
Um, I think overall time is one way on achieving comfortable with being a geek. But also having friends and family around me who were supportive and into the same type of things that I'm into now. Like uh, my mother into Star Wars, her side of the family into Star Wars. So I grew up Star Wars kid. My uncles into GI Joe. They got me into
Right.
that, and slowly but surely they got me into anime. Started me off on all the stuff I shouldn't have been watching at the time, but whatever. It made me who I
Right.
ended. It helped shape the otaku that I am today. So I thank them very much for it. But also having friends like you who I've been friends with
Where did you
forever
get
now.
VHS?
I've actually had the VHS station
Oh,
on
man.
standby.
Like
Oh
they
man.
shouldn't even be within reach, bro. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh man. Oh, that got me.
Thank you
Oh
for that.
man.
Thank you for that. But no, like
Yeah.
also having
Look,
friends.
honestly, on that note, Hilton, um, how do you think? What do you think is a good way to help others who maybe aren't comfortable become comfortable?
Mm. It's a tough one because, I think that culturally, you know, we have not, as a society, wrapped our arms completely around geekdom yet. It's becoming more mainstream and it's becoming more
Yeah.
comfortable. But I think there are people who are on the edges are not necessarily becoming geeks as much as they are taking geek culture and saying, well, that's cool because it's a Marvel movie, or that's cool because it's a dope T-shirt, or whatever,
Sure.
without necessarily buying into the larger culture of nerddom. So we don't always get that opportunity of conversion that other, life genres get. If you want to
Yeah.
bring somebody into basketball, the truth is all you got to do is take them to a basketball game if they've never been,
Mhm.
especially if it's a pro sport. It's
Right.
harder to bring somebody in and sit them down in front of an anime, for instance, if they're not used to reading subtitles, or if they're not used to the underlying themes that would happen in an anime. Same thing with comic books.
Right.
Comic books are moving serials. So you just hand somebody a comic book. It's got to be the right one, because if it's
Mhm.
like one of
Right.
those mid-series crossovers and they don't understand who anyone is or
What
what
name
they're
it is?
doing or anything like that, they'll close it and put it down. I just wanted to get on
Yeah.
something real quick. You said Star Wars, and it hurt my heart. You went to your question about accepting people from other, outside of the geek space and all that sort of stuff. My own pop just said yesterday, and it hurt me to my heart, that he never saw any of the Star Wars movies. And back in 19, he said never
Wow.
saw them, and he described them this way, and it's gonna hurt. So hold on to your 23andMe. He said,
Okay.
I was just not into all that pew 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 stuff, and I was just like, oh, like don't why would you do
Wow.
this to me? Why would you do this to me? Whatever happened done to you to deserve this?
You need to
So
correct
that's the
that.
thing with the culture. We take it in, and I think this is what's different between us and other fandoms, if you want to call it that, is that we identify so closely with the things that we love as geeks that even
Sure.
somebody who is into sports or politics or math or history, whatever, they might have a little buffer to say, I'm really into that, but that's not part of what defines me. Whereas us, we're kind of like, we want to be defined by our geekdom in a certain way.
Sure.
And we kind of like welcome that. So it can be a hard thing to compare apples to oranges for people who are like, well, I'm just into stuff at this level in general. And here we come with like, well, this is my life. So here,
You're right.
Have the whole thing. I mean, you know what? Though I would actually challenge that a little bit, because I think that for me, part of what helped me get comfortable was recognizing that the behaviors were the same. So, if I go to a convention, and dress up, if I cosplay, we got to have a certain name for it. But if I cosplay, as a certain character, or I go and I see, other people who are doing the same thing. If I go to a movie premiere and people are dressed as Jedis or stormtroopers or what have you, I began to realize that it's not real different from every Sunday afternoon during football season when people who love football wear the jersey of their favorite player. You're basically cosplaying as that person. They go to games, and there are people at a game who go as far as to paint their entire bodies and their faces, put numbers and words across them. Some people carry signs. Some people have pom-poms. While some people just go and sit down because they're like, I want a hot dog and a beer and I just want to watch the game. Right. And so, again, there are even different levels of fandom within other things that you like. You could like motorcycles and not be a Harley person, prefer street bikes. So I think that getting comfortable in who I was had a lot with getting comfortable or seeing how other people were comfortable in what they were, and then worrying less about that acceptance, because there are definitely people who I would say go above and beyond outside of this realm in the things that we feel like are more socially accepted, like sports. And I think some of that just comes from the amount of money that is made in the mainstream from that. And now that we're beginning to see our stuff, like it's us, we're the ones who are in control.
Yeah.
We're the ones who are making a lot of the decisions about what goes on TV and making references to things that we grew up with and so forth. So I think that that's definitely has helped me become more comfortable. But I also think things like finding Facebook groups that are into the thing that you're into, or conventions having their own groups on Facebook or somewhere else like that, having a Discord that you can jump into and find other people that are like-minded. So I kind of want to switch from that into talking about age as a factor and kind of how that seems to have changed things, because, again, there's an age difference between us. I didn't really grow up with Toonami. And I feel like Toonami made anime so mainstream for a lot of kids who were growing up when Jokes was a child.
Stop it.
And that's, like, you know what I mean? Like,
this is the norm.
It's normal.
Yeah, this kind of a regular thing.
It's normal. But I also, kind of want to touch on how difficult it could be. Like, I went to a very, very all-black school. Very tough to be into anime. Yeah, I did. Just so you know. We weren't in school together, were we? It's tough. Jokes, did you find like that did you find it difficult growing up through like middle school and high school to be into anime, to be a geek as a whole?
I wouldn't necessarily say difficult, but as others were starting to age and get a little bit older, some of those things that we did necessarily from elementary school up, playing the Pokemon thing, some people were getting out of that. Now, for me, I kind of teetered on both sides. Now, for middle school, for example, like I was still playing Pokemon cards, but at the same time, I actually played on the basketball team. So I had, in a sense, two different sets of friends at one point. But they would see that I was into these different things, which some were a little more receptive than others to it. So, if I'm sitting here playing, actually, Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually really was what middle school was. I would play it, and, after once you got to high school, you were kind of playing for money. So then people's eyes started to be like, wait. So you just won $20 off of that game that you just played? I'm like, yeah. I'm good at it. So it's like, when you're good at something, never do it for free. I think the Joker said that's the best for it. But
it's true. It's true.
Definitely in growing up, I think there was those that kind of saw it as, oh, I've aged out of this and I probably shouldn't keep doing this. But the thing is, if it was something that you enjoyed, you should absolutely keep it and move through it. Like, for example, I collected Pokemon cards. So I have a lot of the OG Pokemon cards, and somewhere in my closet on a shelf somewhere, there's a binder in there that has a first edition Charizard in there that I just haven't taken the time to go in there and find.
I don't believe you. Show me the money.
To see what condition it is.
I don't believe you. Show me the money. I don't believe it. Hey, listen, I'm looking at the chat, man, and they're giving you a hard time. They're saying you're a '90s baby. You're basically a '90s baby.
I am a '90s baby. I love the '90s. But listen, best time to grow up in.
MPJ 10 said that they think that Netflix also has played a part in bringing anime to the mainstream, and I would say that's true. I think right now it's very different from the way that it used to be. Like, anime is so much more accessible,
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't say that the mainstream understands it the way that they might understand comic books. You know what I mean, to an extent, but I certainly think that it being like, you can walk into Target and you can find my daughter bought a My Hero Academia poster at Target yesterday for her new apartment. She's like an adult, you know what I mean? So she, you know what I mean? And she was so excited to show me that she bought, and I was like, where did you get that? I thought she went somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, where did you? She was like, I got it at Target for like $5. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like, you didn't used to be able to do that, and so I do think
not at all.
That there is definitely a change in that culture. But I also find, again, as a parent who I only have all my children are girls, I have found that it's been difficult for them as girls. I certainly had parties where they would play video games and beat up the grown men, playing games. There is and people would just assume they cheat. I do think a lot about getting comfortable.
Right.
Nah, they're just good. Yeah. I think a lot about being comfortable is, also learning to push the bounds of acceptance of other people and what they like. So like Hilton, as a proprietor of a con yourself, what have you seen in terms of acceptance or lack thereof that maybe is changing over the past few years?
Well, if you talk about the generational gap, I see more parents being willing to bring their younger kids into the geek space. I think because the geek space has, kind of tethered itself to, geekdom, and geekdom and nerddom is kind of now academically synonymous with STEM. So this connection between, like, oh, if my son or daughter is kind of into video games or anime or these quote unquote nerdy things, they're probably going to be more accepting to, the academic side of things like math and science and stuff. And also it's cultural. You're seeing this resurgence of cultural identity in geekdom, i.e. BlerdCon, Black Nerd Convention. So people are also tying it to their individual cultural connections as well. Whereas in the past, I used to have, Dungeons and Dragons sessions broken up by parents thinking we were summoning demons in the basement. Like,
Sure.
like get these demons out my house. Like, where do you see demons? I got dice and I got. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? So there was this thing with acceptance where, because it's more mainstream and it is, just like you were saying, more acceptable and more available to people. Your mom will walk in now and watch you watching Cowboy Bebop or watching an anime on Netflix and say, oh, if it's on Netflix, it can't be that underground. Whereas, back in the day, if you was bringing in an unmarked VHS tape, and,
Right. There might be some
Yeah.
what is
Whoa,
that?
what's on there for you to put that in there?
And I'm going to go real deep for
Yeah.
a second. I also think the fact that Toonami and Cartoon Network bringing these animes in
Yes.
in dub version allows for a little bit more
Yeah.
availability to the non-anime fan or the non-geek fan to kind of be able to come along for the ride in a way they weren't before, and go, oh, I understand more of what's going on. This is more about robots, spaceships, and monsters, and not about demons being summoned in my basement. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
really the key to this new broadening for this next generation. Parents and guardians and older brothers and sisters and your peer group. Just like you said, your daughter was able to get that poster, even if she had never seen My Hero Academia before. She could turn it
It
on
was
and
a
not be
target.
chastised by her circle of
Yeah.
friends. So
Right.
I think that's really one of the keys.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you touched on a good point. I'm seeing people in the chat saying that they can attest to, being a female, or that they have kids that are gamers and are into anime, and that it makes them more well-rounded as individuals. I certainly think that it helps that we're coming into generations where we as the geeks that are into this stuff and have been are raising generations of kids that are into it and find it acceptable. And I think that is having an effect on the world. But I also think that, yeah, being able to like find merchandise is great in more ways than one. Hilton, earlier you touched on kind of having that sixth sense about kind of just walking up and being able to tell that somebody's into what you're into. Now it's not that difficult, because you can go almost anywhere and see somebody wearing a Spider-Man hat, a Goku hat, a shirt that has One Piece on it. You can find, you know what I mean? Like, you can actually find people out and about, where like that very once very I'm a Mason or Illuminati secret society of geeks that used to exist is it's so much more front facing, that I think it allows a certain level of comfortability, feeling like when you go to somewhere like a Target, or you're not at a convention, you are seeing people who actually do love what you love.
I've had that happen a
I
few
certainly
times
think
recently.
that's helping.
I've had that
Yeah,
happen a few times
talk to me
recently.
about
Like,
this,
no, just like in the drive-through, go to get the food. I had my Akatsuki shirt on. Guy was like, "Hey, that's a dope shirt." I was like, "My man, you know what I'm talking about?" Okay, Target.
Right.
I have on my work badge. I have a One Piece thing around my neck or whatever. Yeah. So I went to go get something from Target. The guy was like, "Oh, dude, that's dope. I'm about to get a tattoo of a panel right here of One Piece and such," and just had a whole conversation. He was so excited to see somebody shared in that passion. Like, it was just great to feel. So great to feel. And that's been happening a lot lately when I've been going out to get stuff. Because I wear it proudly.
Agree on that
I think
part.
it matters. Have you did you find, were you picked on as a child, Sin?
I don't think I was picked on, just maybe looked at a kind of way. Like, if I wanted to go play video games instead of sports, like, really? You'd rather go inside and do that? You'd rather read comic books instead of, go play football? Yeah, I want to know what happens next in this next issue of X-Men. Yeah, that's what I want to do right now. Like, let me finish that first, then maybe I'll come outside and play football. Yeah, but this just takes priority. No, I didn't get picked on. I think just kind of looked at as if, ooh, you're doing that weird, nerdy kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when I come back and sit down and talk about music and the new rap album that came out, then it's like it never happened. Like, it was a weird, foggy balance that I tried to maneuver throughout. Like, middle school and high school. I still had my core friends, but it was just weird. Like I said before, it wasn't until I met you and we started kicking it that I realized that, okay, so there are people out there like me who listen to music, listen to hip hop, can know all the lyrics, can all this other stuff, but we're just really heavy into video games and anime and comic books and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when we were kids, there was more of a division.
Yes.
There was like a very like you weren't allowed to like sports and like cartoons or like comic books and girls or like you know what I mean? Like you weren't allowed to
It's all over the place.
like you
It's like
girls
you
like
could
you.
not.
It's like you said before,
Yeah,
like
you
it's that cutoff. Like you're supposed to have that certain cutoff. People would feel that after a certain age, okay, you're not supposed to be doing that no more. Now you're supposed to be in the sports and going outside
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, did any of you find that there was a point in time where did anybody ever actually say to you like, aren't you a little old to watch cartoons? And you had to have that. This isn't a cartoon. This is an anime.
What
Like,
time is it?
I
I
had that.
like history.
Numerous
I'm like, wait a minute.
I had that
like
a
Tuesday.
couple years ago. I had to put somebody in their place a couple years ago for that.
Oh,
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had,
I'm
definitely
talking
had that.
this week. I was like this week. They're like,
This week,
it's a constant thing. Like, oh, he had like, look, I might be in a unique position here, but I don't really know anybody's family situation. But I was raised as the only nerd or geek in my entire household. So everything I was into, it wasn't like I was the oldest, so I didn't have an older brother who I was impressing on, and my younger brother didn't really follow in my footsteps. So what I was doing in the geek space when I was growing up was just me. Where does he get this from? It was like, who taught him this? Whose fault is this? It was this kind of thing. And it's always been, I go home and if I put on anime, I go in that room right now and put some anime on. Somebody's going to say, oh, you done uploaded one of those apps. You're going to break my TV, boy. Turn that off. It's the cartoon. Like I don't like watching cartoons, So I'm talking like y'all talking about ancient history. I'm like, what time is it? Like I done got a cartoon lecture this week. Like, so that's one of the things that I think is generational that you're talking about is that our parents going forward had no relationship to the geek space. We were kind of pioneers, when it was really, really hard to be geeks because you didn't necessarily have Toonami or Cartoon Network kind of delivering it in a broadcast way. And it's really inspiring to me to see this generation being able to grow up with this term meaning something completely different to them. If you talk to an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old about the term nerd, it does not mean outcast. It does not mean weirdo. It does not mean somehow separated from everybody else. It's just like just kind of like an identifier, just like anything else, and it's a chest thumping thing to be a geek or a nerd. And it's kind of like, man, I didn't grow up with that relationship to this definition. I was more of the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was that way, across the board. Like as a kid, man, I was, it was unacceptable to be taking Taekwondo classes. It was unacceptable to be a Boy Scout. It was unacceptable to be a dancer. It was you know what I mean? And I did all of those things. You know what I mean? So like being in the arts, being in martial arts, being a Boy Scout, being like all of those things were the kind of things that were considered not cool. And I had to get comfortable. I had very super supportive parents. My parents would put me in anything they thought would keep me busy. So,
agree.
I had super supportive parents, which I think makes a huge difference, for a lot of people. I'm seeing people in the chat who are saying that they're still getting, just like you guys said, that somebody's, you're too old to watch cartoons. And I think that one of the things that has happened as for instance, anime has gotten more mainstream is that people are beginning to watch it and accept that the stories that are being told there are not necessarily stories for children. That many times they're not stories for children. And I have had to go back to people and say, just as a reminder, one of the oldest cartoons that you can probably think of, the Flintstones, was not made for children. It was a primetime evening show akin to Cheers. You know what I mean? Or How I Met Your Mother, or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like that was geared, and there were even old like Warner Brothers cartoons were done in termite terrace and were a bunch of grown men just making really adult jokes, really for an adult audience, and using cartoons, not unlike the way comic strips have been used. And so, I do think that my ability to be comfortable and my ability to help my children be comfortable, with who they are and what they enjoy definitely had a lot to do with being able to surround myself with other people who were, even if they weren't accepting, they weren't off-putting or didn't give me a hard time about it or something along those lines in the same sense. Jokes, did you find that growing up, again, considering the age difference, like, did you find that growing up, did you get made fun of, or was it difficult for you making that transition, middle school to high school, or even out of high school?
I wouldn't really say I was actually picked on. So me growing up, especially younger, mid-teens, like I was always the bigger kid in the class. So like I played on the basketball team. I was taller probably than what my age at the time was supposed to be. So I was into all these things, but no one was going to pick on the guy like, yo, he's like twice my size. I'm not going to go over there and pick on him or do anything. He'd probably destroy me if I do anything for it. But it was, so I always find like I try to share what I had at a very young age. So like actually my 6th grade year in elementary school, getting ready to leave elementary, head into middle school, those, as usual, that last week of school, it's mostly guys just come in, let's just watch videos and stuff like that. So I bought with me, well, of course, there was a little plot in this, of course. It was a Tuesday. I remember this. New release movies. It's been that way for a very long time. So Dragon Ball Z, a couple VHSs came out. So hit the local Target before I actually went to school, got the VHSs, and they went right in my book bag when I went to school. So teachers, of course, asked, well, did anybody bring anything with them? I was like, hey, I got Dragon Ball Z. Can we put this on and can we watch this? So this was during the time right after the Cell Saga, where Goku was in Otherworld tournament and he was with Pycon and all that. So we put that on. A lot of kids in the classroom never had heard of Dragon Ball Z, and put it in, and we started watching, and Goku was fighting Pycon, and everyone just was like, yo, what is this? Because this is absolutely amazing. Of course, at the time, everyone's like, yo, this is a cartoon. And I kind of had that conversation at a young age, like, no, there's a slight difference. Like, this is called an anime.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I had to have that conversation. But I've always found it that when things were explained and brought forward a little bit, people were open to it. Like for me, like, I don't know if you guys remember when you actually learned or figured out what anime was. Like the first one that I was actually exposed to, believe it or not, was Speed Racer. It came on Nickelodeon.
That makes sense.
So, and at the time, I'm just thinking it was a cartoon. But when I started, like after it went off, dial-up internet, I think we still on, I'm looking up, find out if there's more Speed Racer or whatnot ever. And then I start finding all this stuff with like foreign objects, foreign languages and things on there. And that was when I started truly learning about.
Started to delve into that into that well and get caught up.
And the same thing happened with Power Rangers. Like I'm looking for figure out what's going on with Mighty Morphin, and I start finding these other teams that look like that. I'm like, these aren't my Power Rangers.
What are all these other teams and stuff?
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm seeing people in the chat, saying that. I just saw somebody in the chat say that with all of the great skill that they see, even at something like Otakon, that they're afraid to try cosplay. Again, different levels of comfortability with different things. I would say, go for it, right? Like look for groups where there are people who are just starting. There are plenty of people who are really good or have been doing cosplay for a long time, who do tutorials and things like that. Like everybody does understand that you have to start somewhere. So start with like closet cosplay, at first, and maybe find other people in a group who maybe are willing to try doing a group cosplay with you, so that maybe you don't feel as scrutinized by somebody looking directly at you, but they're looking at you guys as a group and going, oh man, look at that particular group or what have you. I think stuff like that is important to to find. And I do believe that even within the confines of our own geekdom and fandoms, you know, obviously we do have some of that level of people kind of getting picked on, or hey, you bought your cosplay, you didn't make it, or you know, whatever. But I find a lot of that is really, really, really at the deepest level and at the surface. Most people are just excited to see somebody cosplay a character that they're familiar with,
Absolutely.
or that takes that step because they haven't done it themselves and might be interested in it. You know, Hilton, you do. None of the rest of us do cosplay at all. Hilton, you do a little cosplay. What was the first cosplay you ever did?
Well, my first cosplay was Lord Raiden from Mortal Kombat.
Ooh,
That was my, when I showed up. It was 2014 or 15, and I was always a costumer for Halloween. I lived and died for Halloween. Already, like, costume parties were happening before I was going back into cons. And one thing that, to the person who was a little skittish about going to cosplay, you need to understand is that the cosplay community is probably one of the most accepting facets in the nerd space that you're going to find. You know, they're very encouraging. They're very open. There's very little gatekeeping when it comes to cosplay. Now, don't take that. It's not the same in the anime community. You got to know your stuff if you're gonna get in some of these circles, or you might get your feelings hurt. But if you cosplaying, it could be as simple as, like, if you're just wearing a shirt and a hat combo, you know, it's appreciated and it's understood because it's an expression of your fandom first.
Absolutely.
And only at the most high and in competition levels do people really nitpick for things like accuracy or, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I think cosplay is probably one of the biggest, I would say, fueling factors behind the growth of conventions. The population of cosplayers has been where you see all of these conventions that maybe 15, 20 years ago were 500-600 people or 1,000 people, and now we're doing 10,000 and 20,000 people. Is that cosplay community is the one that is the most active in the con space. And I think it's also been good for geekdom because, you know, there wasn't cons every other weekend. I mean, of course, we're in COVID time now, so it's not even now, but in general, on the schedule, you know, there's a con somewhere like every other weekend.
Almost every weekend,
That's right. And even if it's like just a toy and comic book show somewhere between, let's say, maybe Tidewater, Virginia, and Baltimore, there is somewhere to go where geeks are gathering and there's cosplayers and gaming and stuff happening. So yeah, I love the cosplay community. I love cosplaying. I even try to incorporate cosplay into some of the stuff that I do when I'm going out and about in my civilian clothes, you know, whenever I can. And I encourage people to get into it if you haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm seeing, you know, I saw somebody just posted, you know, I'll stick to my nerdy T-shirts and shorts instead. And, you know, look, here's the thing, I've been going to conventions for years, and people know that I'm like a die-hard Spider-Man fan. Like today, let's just get this clear. Today is National Spider-Man Day, if you did not know. So, you know what I mean? Like,
blue field. I had no idea.
Listen, when I get done with, I'm gonna be dressed to the. I know though. You know what I mean? Like that's
you're gonna be dressed like normal.
Right? And yes, for me, I dress in something Spider-Man every day. You can't see my sweatpants right now, but Spider-Man's all over them, and like I'm so comfortable with that. I'm so good with that, but I'm not ready to buy or make or purchase like a full body Spider-Man suit and walk around. Like that's just not where I am.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like love it, have tons of collectibles, you know, any and everything Spider-Man. I'm deep. You know what I mean? I'm one of those guys who's like, oh yeah, Power Rangers, you brought up Power Rangers jokes. Well, Power Rangers only exist because of the Japanese version of Spider-Man, and he was the first one. You know what I mean? Like I'm that guy. Right?
I know you're gonna do that.
But I don't have any Spider-Man tattoos. I have tattoos. No Spider-Man tattoos. No, you know what I mean? Like nobody can tell you, nobody can judge your level of fandom, right? And again, some people are going to cosplay and go all out, and they're going to color their hair, they're going to cut their hair, they're going to do makeup, they're going to, you know what I mean? Like they're going to go to the nines. Those to me are the people at the football game who have decided to go shirtless and paint their body and put a number on them and do face paint or, you know, whatever it is, next to the person who's just like, yeah, I'm just going to throw on a hat that has my favorite team's logo on it and watch the game and cheer for the team that I like the best. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the difference in the way that you choose to show the love that you have for your fandom. And I think that's another thing that we have to get comfortable about and be comfortable with. And we have to be good about supporting other people in whatever their level of fandom is. I have a lot of love for people who go all out, but I certainly love the person who, like you were saying, Sin, might just have a shirt on that just has a little something on the sleeve. And when you see it, you know what it is.
You know it.
It makes you feel good that there are other people out there and not everybody has to shout it from the rooftops. Like, I don't necessarily need to shout from the rooftops that I'm a geek. You're probably going to know I like Spider-Man in some way, shape, or form if you're around me. I'm just saying. You know, I got everything from lava lamps to keychains to like it's actually a problem.
We most certainly have seen your collection here, sir.
It's
actually a problem. You know, look, Sin, you got One Piece flags, you know what I mean, behind you. Jokes, you're a Gundam guy and a Power Rangers guy. And like when Power Rangers came out, I was in high school. That was a little too like I ran the first run, but like
got the first one.
After Mighty Morphin, I was done. And for me, it's like you can have it. The other day, you tagged me in a post because they did a new Power Rangers comic.
Yep.
And they had the nerve to have the Green Ranger on the front of the comic like it was the Spider-Man.
The Amazing
comic?
What was that? Issue 300?
Get out of my fandom, sir.
Right. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, here you go, Gage.
Don't mix my fandoms. But listen, here's the thing. We pick with each other a lot about stuff like that. We have fun. We recognize that there are differences, you know, in age and sexual orientation and race and how that sometimes can affect who you are. I will tell you this. One of my biggest moments in recognizing that we're all the same was going to a Fridays one evening, like a Friday evening, and running into an old friend of mine who was in a beautiful dress with a pearl necklace. And I said, oh, did I miss your graduation? Did you graduate? I'm so sorry I missed you. And she's like, nah. I'm like, well, what's going on? You come from, you know, she's like, oh, nah, me and my friends went to go see Sex and the City at the movies. And I was like, wait a minute. You all got dressed up like this, heels and a pearl necklace and the really nice prom dress to go see Sex and the City? She was like, yeah, you have to. Like, you got to get in the mood. And I was like, you're all dressed like this? And she was like, yeah, take me to your table. I need to see this. So we went to the table, and everywhere, mothers, daughters, aunts, all together at tables, dressed to the nines, gorgeous. And I said to them, you do realize you're Star Wars geeks, right? And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, you're a Jedi right now. Like, you got dressed up like the characters in the movie to go to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make fun of us anymore.
Nope.
She was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you're right.
One of us.
You're one of us now.
Right? And like, I feel like not only did that push a button for me, but it pushed a button for her, and kind of just like recognizing that we all do that kind of stuff, right? That we all have that thing that we really love and that we're willing to go a little bit of an extra mile for. And that if we can look at the similarities first, it just makes it so much easier. Look, Ash Nicole in the chat says Sex and the City was a mood. You right. You're right. Black Panther also was a mood. I see you, Real King Buzz says Black Panther had everybody in West African textiles. Are you kidding me? Dashiki at the theater, like, I was like, what's going on?
Girl, they dressing like Coming to America, the whole night.
Wedding scene for Coming to America. That's what we all look like.
Yes.
Yes. I you know, look, I want to go around the horn one time and just get everybody's quick take, just a piece of advice you would give to anybody who's not comfortable and how they might get comfortable. I'm going to start with you, Sin. Tell us what you got.
I'm gonna say use your social media platforms to your advantage. There's places like Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them, that you can go and find these groups and these like-minded people of the fandoms that you're passionate about and you want to get into. A lot of safe places. Yes, there is some negative Nellies out there, but
Always.
yeah, I mean, I'm a part of a few, a few anime groups or whatever. But yeah, I would say that's a really good way. Reach out to your community, find some great groups that you can get a part of, and just share and just enjoy your fandom. That's what I would say.
I'm gonna jump onto that, and just kind of add to that. If you are using social media to try to find a way to do that, man, listen, use your hashtags. Right? Hashtags, I think, are a thing that are so misunderstood. People throw them at the bottom of their own posts, but don't, I feel like, really realize that if you just in your search bar, hashtag whatever it is you're looking for, you will find every post, anything that has that in it. And it makes it easier for you to find folks who are into what you're into, who like what you like, whatever that might be. So use your hashtags. Jokes, I want to go to you. What kind of advice do you have maybe for the group to talk to people about how they can get comfortable?
Biggest thing is just having conversations. I know we talk about social media, I mean in person, where it's just having conversations. The biggest thing you can do is something that maybe you don't necessarily understand, but you see someone else is very passionate, is just thrilled about it. Try to have a conversation and find out why it is that they have that passion behind it. The same way they may not understand why you truly love something, and then that creates that communication between one another. Then that kind of starts to bridge into other avenues where, hey, well, I do have these friends that are into the same thing as you. Let's all get together and, let's sit down, let's watch a couple episodes of an anime, let's watch this particular movie or television show, and let me start to understand it. But the biggest thing is really it's the communication piece, because a lot of people just like to be like, well, you know what, I don't like that, I don't understand it, I'm not even going to bother to try to jump into it, I'm just going to let it be. And then that's where disconnects come from, just because you can't just ask a simple question and just try to figure out why it is someone loves or likes a certain topic, a certain fandom. But just that communication, that's big key piece.
I dig that. Hilton, I'm gonna come to you next. What advice would you give to people to find good ways to get comfortable if they're not currently comfortable?
My favorite saying is, when in a foreign land, let your freak flag fly. So if you feel like you're isolated, if you feel like you're the only person that likes a certain thing,
I hear you.
wear that Pokemon shirt, wear that One Piece hat, wear that your comic book shirt or something like that, because you don't know where your tribe is. And I think the larger mission of geekdom and nerddom is finding your tribe. All of us who are comfortable being geek have become comfortable, at least in part, because we have found our tribe. I know you guys. If I ever just
Yeah.
wanted to talk about something because I always want to geek out about it, I have people I can DM, I have people I can email, I have places. Of course, it's COVID time, so obviously not right now, but there's places where I can go where I know where people are going to be, where I can have those conversations if it's not at work or not at church or not in my own house. So don't be scared
Yeah.
to wear on your person, that which you are passionate about, because you would be surprised the people that would come up to you who are not wearing anything, who might have their geekdom in the closet and bundled up, who might be looking too. And if they see that you got your stuff on, they might come to like, is that a, and next thing you know, you've made a connection. And then you find that there's a lot more of people like you out there than
Yeah.
you might have thought before.
100%.
And that's been, I
Right.
think, one of the big successes of conventions like Otakon, where you go to these cons and you see all these people that you might only see one time a year, and you really get these connections and connect with the community. Get that shirt on when you go to Target, or you going to the post
That's
office, or
right.
you going grocery shopping, rock your
Wear
right.
nerd
pride.
stuff. And I'm telling you, there's more nerds out there than not now in your world.
You're
And
right.
you go out there and find
Yes.
it, and you will be comfortable.
That's awesome. I want to take a minute to acknowledge the chat. I am seeing people in the chat. The Great
Yeah, I've been
Decoy,
going back and forth. It's been going crazy.
Amber W Adventure 2019. Like, just saying thank you for doing this. That it's a good conversation. This is the kind of panel, like, we are intending to continue to do this panel at every convention we can do it. We are trying to run it even on our own channels, just because, again, we feel like this is important for us. So we want to do this like once a month and continue this conversation and bring on other people like Hilton, who have different experiences, to be able to speak about what their experiences have been like growing up and ideas that they have. I want to say that not super different from what the rest of the gentlemen have said about, getting comfortable or finding groups by, establishing who you are. I would say, you know what, if you're looking and you're not finding other people who like what you like or are into what you're into, start a group. Go on Facebook or anywhere and start a group. Start, an otaku's group that is specific to the thing that you like about it, and invite people, post content, talk about the things that you want to talk about, use hashtags. Maybe there are other people who are out there who are also looking for what you're looking for and not finding it, and because there isn't already something there, they maybe feel left out or lonely or like they don't have what it is that they're interested in. So while I think it's important to look for and join other groups that are already in the genres you're interested in or kind of meet that criteria, if what you like is a little more niche or something like that, feel free to start that group, right? And put it out there in the other groups that you're in and invite people to join and to have conversation, and speak about, the things that are important to you. I think that a lot of times being comfortable is much more tied to whether or not there are other people who you find like, agree, and or accept what it is that you do or you're into. Certainly surrounding yourself with great groups of friends, like something like this, like you can do at a convention, which obviously in times like this is much harder to do. But those spaces do exist, specifically online. And, this is the kind of thing that we want to continue to do, to make sure that's something for people who maybe need that outreach, or something like that. I want to take a moment to thank Hilton for joining us for this before
Pleasure.
we close out.
Yes.
Hilton, do me a favor. Tell people how they can get a hold of you. Tell them a little bit about what BlerdCon is, and what's going on in that space.
Well, as you know, BlerdCon 2020 was rescheduled, i.e. canceled because of COVID-19. We will be in our physical form this 2021 summer, July 16th through 18th, I believe, at the Hyatt Crystal City. You can find us at blerdcon.com. That's BLERDCON.com. BlerdCon is on all social media platforms under BlerdCon. If you put BlerdCon in the search engine in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're there. Just all of our content, all of our community, everything that we're putting together is there. The Black Nerd movement is a movement within the geek space. We are a burgeoning community. We are a growing community. We are an increasingly interconnected community. And we are being recognized more as one of the foundational communities for the growth of geekdom and nerddom globally. And it's just a really, really great thing to see, where you have groups like this that are, universally accepted, talking about universal subjects, but, are highlighting people of color, and having discussions specific to that, especially when it's needed in times like this. And, we reflect the community that is ahead of us, and that's what BlerdCon is about. So we're hoping to see you this summer. Keep an eye out for all the cool stuff we're going to be doing this fall. A lot of it's going to be virtual, obviously, but it's going to be new. It's going to be
Right.
dope, and you can bet your butt that Loading Snacks will be a part of it. So if you're watching them, you're watching us.
Okay, yeah.
No doubt. Listen, I want to take a moment to thank Otakon specifically for giving us this time, allowing us to have this panel here. We do feel like it's really important. I want to thank everybody in the chat. I see folks are in the chat asking how they can follow us or find us. We're
Easy.
really easy to connect with. Again, across all socials, if you just search at Loading Snacks, we have a YouTube channel where we do like 2 shows a week, Loading Snacks Weekly, where we kind of talk about pop culture stuff that's happening. We have a video game show called Cutscenes where we talk about things going on in video games. Sin has a show that we just wrapped the first season of, which is called Anime Vault, where he's gone back and revisited some of his favorite animes that he grew up with. So what did we touch on? The Guyver, Crying Freeman,
Fist of the North Star,
Fist of the North Star.
Akira, Robotech.
Is that on this? Is that on this?
It's probably
They used to, but I've since upgraded. I've since upgraded my collection.
The VHS file.
So yeah, we are all about all kinds of things in the geek realm. You can follow us, at Loading Snacks on Instagram. We have a TikTok. I mean, nobody's dancing, but it ticks and it talks. So
True.
It's there. But yeah, follow us across all social media. Check us out on YouTube. We have 2 YouTube channels. One where Loading Snacks is.
I'll also say since we talked about groups, since this is an anime convention, we do have an anime chat, LS Anime Chat. If y'all would like to send an invitation there, and we can let you join up and join some fun conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an anime chat group. We have a wrestling chat group for Loading Snacks. We have an MCU chat group for Loading Snacks. So yeah, we are open to kind of inviting any and everybody in to participate. I go by Gage. You can follow me at Empty Shells, MTSHELLZ. Jokes is at New Joker, NUJOKER. Right, Jokes?
Yep, with the 89 at the end. Kind of date myself, but yeah, New Joker 89. Right. Across everywhere.
90s baby self. Squeaked in as an 80s baby, like just barely.
I just made it.
Terrible.
That's right. Yeah, and then Sin at Sincere 619. Easy to find there as well. I want to thank you, Sin, for handing me my first stack of Dragon Ball VHSs. That was like this tall. And then following up with the DVD stack of One Piece that started at like episode 400. And I was like, I'm not watching this. It's 400 episodes. I'm not doing that. Like,
one day.
Thank you, Sam, for doing that.
You're welcome.
Listen, again, one more time. I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank everybody for for being in the chat. And if you guys have any thoughts, ideas, questions, suggestions, feel free to hit us up. You can just email us, loadingsnacks@gmail.com. Or again, feel free to drop notes in our chat or on our page or DM us directly. We are looking for feedback about this panel. We want to do more panels like this. We certainly would love to do it again at Otakon next year. So keep your eyes on us. We're going to keep doing that. I thank you all for joining. I think we're going to, somebody said they're just finally trying One Piece. Now that first chunk is on Netflix.
Do it.
You're right. Catching up is tough. Catching up is tough.
I caught up at like episode 2025. It took me 2 months to get like 600 episodes in, but like,
it's worth the ride once you get into it.
It's well worth it.
I guess if you're gonna do it, the pandemic is the best time to do it, right? Like just like now.
They got nothing else to do. Yeah.
Do it.
Catch up.
Listen, they say don't even start the manga.
Don't even start cliffhangers no time soon.
No, not anytime soon.
Not
at all. Hey, listen, before we go, does anybody have a favorite anime they just want to shout out? I know yours is One Piece, in.
Man.
That's
outside
tough, right?
of for me, outside of the Dragon Ball realm, really it's Gundam. Like, just sheerly because of the different variations of the Gundam series that are out there, there's something that anyone probably could pick from one of these series and find one that you absolutely love. Like I was exposed to Gundam Wing when it first came out, but as time has come along and others have come out, Gundam 00 has become really my favorite one out there. I know Gundam Seed is your thing.
Seed,
but
yes,
Gundam is by far absolutely one of my favorites just because of the diversity and the different variations of this series that's out there for it.
Hey, the chat is going off right now. The chat is going off right now. Hajime no
What?
Why would
Ippo,
you do
Devil
that to
Man,
them?
Steins
There's
Gate.
Fire.
Yu Yu Hakusho,
The chat is
Cowboy
going
Bebop,
off right
all
now.
them are in the favorites too. Oh man, I haven't
Oh,
seen
yeah.
a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure yet. I'm waiting for one of those. I know there's at least one out there.
I'm a Ninja Scroll guy. I'm just give
Hey,
me an OVA. I'm good. Like give me that's my space right there. Yeah, look at
Fair
him
enough.
going off.
dog.
Tenchi, man.
Yep.
Tenchi
Naruto,
Muyo.
Bleach,
Old school, man.
Tenchi
Robotech.
Muyo, OG
Robotech, the
Tenchi Muyo.
original.
I'm right on
The
that.
original
Yes.
trilogy.
Yep.
Samurai
Robotech.
Champloo.
Yes. Macro
Bring it
Sock,
Bring it
one of the
home if
best.
you're going to do it. Yes.
Macro Sock
JoJo's
is one of the
Part
Here we
best.
go.
5.
We got some JoJo's. Someone said they got Ninja
I
Scroll on
see a
VHS
Ninja
somewhere.
Scroll on
Is there,
VHS.
hey, is there even Evangelion in there
Hey,
somewhere? Come on.
Isn't that, come on? I know Evangelion was your thing for a long time. I think you handed those to me on VHS too. To be honest, I see a Rama Hab in there, and I know that was one of your favorites for a long time too, man. I know that was one of your favorites for a long time, man. So
Season 2
yeah,
anime's upcoming.
listen, we gotta wrap this up. I think that's our time. So listen, one more time, thank you everybody for joining. It's been really awesome. Thank you for being in the chat. You guys enjoy the rest of your Otakon online. Follow us at Loading Sacks. Make sure you follow Blurcon. We appreciate you. With that, we are out. Toodles and Loos. What it do, snackers and snackettes? Did you like what you just saw? Would you like to help us grow? Here's what you can do. Shoot over to patreon.com/loading snacks, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite platform of choice. Appreciate you.